Welcome back to the newest episode of the Real Estate and Chill podcast. I'm your host, James Shatter, here for all your residential financial needs. Here with
Kevin Iglesias, associate real estate broker. Wow, man, we're over 100 plus episodes. We got the one and only Jay Siano in the building. Let's go.
There we go, man.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for having me. Jay Siano, founder, CEO, Sabre Real Estate Advisors. I'm involved in multiple businesses, partners with Mike Steinberg in Sabre Business Exchange. I also own a company that focuses on franchise solutions end-to-end called Scale Franchise Solutions. Thanks for having me.
You just said a lot of stuff.
I did. We're going to unpack that shit.
You dive a lot into like the commercial space of real estate.
Correct. Yeah. So my company, I started Sabre about just going on 13 years ago. And our primary business is really helping companies design and execute their expansion strategy across the United States. So, for instance, I represent probably about 35 companies nationally exclusively. So if anybody wants to do a deal with a company like SolidCore, a fitness company, they have to deal with Sabre advisors. We have local partners throughout the country that are boots on the ground, essentially. So we give the playbook to the local partners, and we are an extension of the company. So very unique business. Not many people do what we do. Took me about 23 years in total to get where I am. Started in commercial real estate 2001 in Long Island, and at the time just drove the streets for literally about 6 months straight. Went to every single shopping center, took out an index card, drew the shopping center on the back of the index card, got back to the office, looked at the front of the card, wrote down the management company, the landlord, the real estate address, northwest corner of Portion Road and Holbrook Road. I know every inch of Long Island because I did that. From there, my first account that I landed was Starbucks Coffee. You guys probably have heard of them. Oh. I've done about just shy of 200 Starbucks deals between New York and New Jersey.
Wow. 200 Starbucks deals.
Yo, that's nuts. Hold on. Rewind back. You're saying it so nonchalant. 200 Starbucks.
200 Starbucks.
How?
That's a good story.
You should have been sipping some Starbucks right now.
Oh, dude, I've already had fucking 4. So that could take up the whole podcast. So I literally have no clue what I'm doing. I just canvassed the entire Long Island market, which is the area that the company I worked for only focused on. So I'm trying to work with local businesses. I ended up actually doing a cell phone store deal, a nail salon deal, what most typical commercial real estate brokers end up doing. And a senior level guy in the company, which was very well known for working with big national brands, invited me on a pitch to pitch the Starbucks account. So I just counted my blessings, showed up to the pitch, and the senior level broker literally had a panic attack in the meeting because we're in the East Coast headquarters, which happened to be in Syosset, Long Island at the time. And the team of real estate, the real estate development team for Starbucks was a very intimidating group of people, uber smart, like next level. And I actually had to chime in the meeting when he clammed up, and I started to sell the company that I worked for. I didn't even attempt to try to tell them that I could, represent them and so on and so forth. And I think that's a great lesson for people because I was just there in the supporting role, jumped in, did whatever damage control I could do, left, went back to the office. As we walked out of that meeting, I turned to the guy, and I won't name his name because it's embarrassing. He's still in the industry. And actually, you know him. And I said, man, I think you just sunk my career, man. I can't believe how bad that went. And, thank you for inviting me. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not going to make it in this business, right? So
How old are you?
So this is 2002, end of 2002. So I'm like, early 20s.
Young guy. So damn, you were feeling maybe a little bit discouraged.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it was a very intimidating situation too, right? So, but again, I just jumped in and kind of talked about what the company overall could offer. And we left. We got back. My partner, my business partner now, and we'll get to that, was my boss at the time, actually. So, and I walk in, Ken Breslin, the Breslin family owns about 9 million square feet, specifically on Long Island. We can get into that as well. But walk in, how'd it go? Terrible. Why? Told him exactly what transpired. And unbeknownst to me, after he got a call from the Starbucks folks, they said, listen, good news, bad news. We absolutely do not want to work with this one individual who totally was not prepared for the meeting. However, we really actually enjoyed meeting Jay, and we think he's a young, intelligent, driven kid. So if you bring him back in with another senior level broker to kind of pitch the account, we'd like to have a round 2. Yeah. So we went back in, we pitched it. A woman by the name of Beth Lamport, who unfortunately has since passed, kind of, gave me the opportunity, rose to the occasion for me. We landed the account in 2003, and I went on to represent Starbucks for 18 years. So, and that opportunity, learning the what I do, learning the actual how to strategically grow a brand like that. And all of the data that goes into it, the psychographics, the demographics, the obviously traffic patterns, drive-throughs being a major thing for Starbucks. We started to convert the whole portfolio to drive-through locations. They started out being, more the third place is what they called it. And then ultimately over the years, they became kind of a fast food, restaurant concept with a drive-through. But the biggest thing that happened to me as a result of that was I got the education through one of the best companies on the planet to learn the real estate process for commercial real estate, or what we call retail real estate more specifically. I was visiting friends in LA right after kind of, maybe 6 months into the Starbucks account. I'm sitting in a FedEx Kinko's at the time on La Cienega, and I look across the street and I see this crazy storefront that was just very innovative to me, unique, and I was inspired to go in. I left all my shit on the desk at FedEx, walked across La Cienega, and walked into the first Chipotle. So long story short, I ended up calling them like crazy, nonstop, obsessed with the brand Chipotle, and I ended up bringing them to New York.
Wait.
You brought Chipotle to New York?
I did.
Did you bring Starbucks to Long Island?
No, Starbucks was already here.
But you just got the account and you expanded it.
Correct. So Starbucks was already here. They were no longer really happy with the brokerage that they were working with. So they opened up an RFP for brokers to come in and pitch the account. So represented Starbucks exclusively on Long Island for 18 years and parts of New Jersey for some of that period of time as well.
And you brought Chipotle to Long Island.
That's correct.
Where was the first Chipotle on Long Island?
Hicksville. We converted.
That's the one that's right next to my house because I remember going there for the first time.
That's right. Yeah. So we converted a Krispy Kreme.
Yes, I remember
and
that.
The biggest crime of that whole thing is, based on how difficult it is to get drive-thrus permitted on Long Island, we actually closed the existing drive-thru for Chipotle. And it's funny because you fast forward to today, and now they're opening drive-thrus, but it took them a very long time to get there.
That's
funny to hear that.
That's a huge accomplishment. That's a major account, bro.
Yeah. Thank you.
The slogan, I love Chipotle. Chipotle's my life. You never seen that video?
Chipotle's my life.
Of course I have.
You ever hear the song, I'm in love with Chipotle? They did a knockoff of
They should have called you. B-roll.
100%. But what's really cool about what I do and what's very unique is, so I worked with Steve Ells, the founder of Chipotle, in early Chipotle days. And that's kind of what, my niche within my company. And, Sabre does a bunch of different things. We're a traditional brokerage company that covers primarily the New York metro area, where we help owners of buildings and developers assemble dirt and develop projects that have at least a retail component. So whether it's a shopping center or a mixed-use project at a train station that has a retail component, or we also represent companies on the tenant side, which is where my strength is, where I spend 100% of my time. And we do that on a national basis. So
My main curiosity is what made you get into this business, right? Because it's just like, I don't know, it's very like black and white. It doesn't seem sexy to me from outside looking in. So what made you get into it? Because most people would be like, let me get into residential sales, sell homes, but you just dived into commercial.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's it's not such a great story. I actually went to college at the University of Arizona. I left home at 17, wanted to go far to a hot school that was pretty much a party school, right? So I was a DJ at the time. Club promoter, promoting clubs in Arizona as well as back in New York City, in the Hamptons, and Miami. So I was heavy in the nightlife space. Unfortunately, my mom actually was diagnosed with cancer when I was in college. So, so I ended up coming back from school after I graduated, and my mom passed away. So I didn't know really what I wanted to do at all. I had some ideas, knew I wanted to be in the business space. Always was interested in real estate, but knew I didn't want to be in residential real estate for a lot of reasons that, today, obviously, we're talking a lot about business brokerage, which we'll get into, but, it's a very saturated market, residential. So for me, it was like, how do I marry my passion for fashion and fitness and, pop culture and, hospitality and all those things. So when I started to learn about real estate, I was like, wow, there's this thing called retail real estate, and people actually own shopping centers. Like Mr. and Mrs. Smith own that shopping center that's worth $75 million. Like things that I couldn't even comprehend at the time. And then, to be completely honest, the most affluent people that I know owned shopping centers. So that was really
it's big real estate.
Yeah,
it's big real estate.
It's heavy. So once you add up a couple of properties that are worth 50 to 100 million each,
Hey, make sure you check us out at therealestatechillpodcast.com. Buy your real estate merch now. Real estate merch with swag, a brand for hustlers only. Let's go. Yeah, no, definitely. How can somebody get into that retail space? I'm in the residential side, so I don't even know how you would even get into that retail space.
So long story short, my mom passed away. I'm doing a bunch of different things. My first job out of college was working as an assistant buyer at Prada in New York City. I was living in New York City, DJing at night, burning the candle at both ends. And I'll get to, my answer to your question, which is I wouldn't even recommend it. The reality is that it took me, probably I had the Starbucks account, I had the Chipotle account, and many other accounts, right? But let's say arguably two of the best accounts on the planet. And, when I sign a lease for a Starbucks or a Chipotle or anybody for that matter, I'm not getting paid for typically, on average, probably 18 to 24 months. So in my industry, there's a very high barrier to entry because you have to be practically psychopathic to focus on a business that essentially has an 18 to 24 month window prior to getting paid a dime, right? So, and then ultimately the sad part about our business is even when you represent such a great tenant like a Starbucks or a Chipotle and you bring them into a property, you negotiate the deal and you're getting paid a portion upon lease execution and the remainder upon open for business, every waiver, obviously being satisfied, and rent commencement. A lot of the landlords still don't want to pay you. So it's like, it's literally getting punched in the face continuously, many, many times a day. A lot of great businesses are not easy to do, but I'm saying that because when I discovered business brokerage, I realized how beneficial that is to young people, because everything I just described about really what my superpowers are and what I do for a living. And let's not forget, there's only one person in a market that represents Starbucks. There's one person in a market that represents Chipotle. So, if you're playing the odds, it's not likely going to be you, especially if I'm your competition. Let's be real, right? I'm 23 years in the game now. I represent, a lot of different businesses. I'm all about helping other people become successful. I'm extremely motivational in everything that I do. And for me today, it's not about the money. It's about the impact that I have in general too, like in business as a mentor to young people. And quite frankly, I only steer people in the right direction. That's not to say that if somebody, a young Jay Siano, came to me and was like, listen, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'd love to do it with you, and if you can help me, 100% I'm going to help that person. But I'm also going to be extremely transparent and honest with them about what it's going to take to get there, which I think is doing a service to people. And I think, entrepreneurship is getting a very, very, people think that being an entrepreneur is this amazing thing, when I think, quite frankly, you could actually be a very successful number 10 at a big company, make more money, and probably sleep better at night. So, I think these are the obligations for somebody at my stage of my career, to help educate young people and not try to, do the opposite of what most commercial real estate brokerage companies do, which is actually take advantage of young people, tell them a lot of misinformation about how long it's going to take to get them set up, put them on a draw with a high interest rate. So they're basically a bank, essentially. So all they're doing now is giving these young people a loan that they're ultimately going to get paid back with interest, and pretty much squeeze them out, and the older, more senior level people at these big companies, these big brokerage companies, take advantage of the young people, and they're not intentionally trying to do things to really gear them to come be their competition. It's a very, very scarcity mindset industry. And I speak very openly about this because I have a very big love-hate relationship with the industry as a whole. And I'm trying to change the industry. But you're not going to make a deal in your first 6 months like you could potentially in business brokerage, right? And when we're talking about, like, I literally on my way here this morning, I opened up a Business Insider article, and it was about how there's far too many residential agents in the world, right?
It's true.
So, and markets like this and interest rates like this cleanse every industry, which, I'm never rooting for the failure of anybody, but at the end of the day, the cream rises to the top, and somebody who's in the game a long time that's working every day as if they never got started, like myself, 23 years in, I'm at the end of the day, I have to make sure that the people that I'm involved with are doing all the right things, not taking shortcuts. And when things get tougher, that's when we get even further ahead, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Gem after gem. One thing that I know that you're, big partners with is Ryan Servant.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so Ryan and I met as a result of social media, which we always talk about, right? We talked about on our podcast. So I started a vlog at the end of 2015. I came up with the concept of creating a weekly vlog. So I actually bought a camcorder at Best Buy and handed it to my receptionist, and she's like, she was way younger than me. She's like, dude, you just bought a camcorder. Like, they still make those? I'm like, she's like, and she happened to be a photographer, coincidentally, and she's like, you need to get a DSLR. I'm like, a DSL who? So her and I go to Best Buy, swap it out, get a DSLR. She follows me around, and we turn that into a 5-year weekly vlog that changed names over time. Initially, it was called Real Saber, and it was just kind of like that fly on the wall, behind the scenes kind of reality show type thing that I later transitioned a few times into ultimately Future Proof. Ryan, I met through mutual friends along the way, and he was actually, I think the first episode of Future Proof was Ryan and I doing something just like this. We became friends. He invited me. He was doing a fireside chat with Gary Vee. He invited me to that, so I was chopping it up with him and Gary. And actually, there's a video on Daily V of me asking Gary and Ryan a question about. We should insert that clip.
My question to you is, how do I get more of my agents to actually get involved in the videos, in their social media?
You don't. You put pressure by showing that it's working, and then bring in new people to eat their lunch, and then got it?
Yeah, so either they have it or they don't, or they're
my
interested
biggest
or they're not.
thesis on all life at some level is you can't sell the unsellable.
Me asking him about both of them, that I'm vlogging for about a year, And my brokers at my brokerage are not really bought into social media and the cameras and all the things. They think I'm crazy. Commercial real estate is super, super traditional, dude. I don't have to tell you guys, most people do not look like this, dressed like this. So, you know, even my team at the time was like, you know, what's he doing? Like, this is crazy, right? But I knew that if I was doing innovative things and generating awareness, I'm a marketing dude. Like, I love marketing, right? So I know how powerful this stuff is, and it's been proven now. And now everybody who was talking shit about me 6 years ago is now trying to be more like me, which, you know, listen, that's a humble brag, because when you get enough shit from people, like, you're walking through conferences and all they want to know is why you're, you know, are you trying to be like in media now? Like, you're a real estate person, right? But kudos to Ryan, like, he was always talking about how hesitant he was to do a vlog. And when I asked him and Gary that question, that was actually the day he was launching his own vlog, which has more viewership than most television shows, right? But he was hesitant because he's like, I'm on real television. Like, why am I going to put out a vlog? And he built, you know, the studios team and everything else. I'm good friends with all the people, you know, a lot of the folks that work on Ryan's studio team. And as we started to continue our friendship, he told me that he was planning to develop the Long Island Serhant brand, essentially. And I had a couple, you know, I represent founders and C-suite executives of very large, well-known companies. And I have a bunch of high net worth people that are looking to buy, you know, very expensive homes. And I had, when he mentioned that to me when we were together, I was like, you know, dude, I actually have a friend who's looking to sell his Gold Coast, you know, North Shore mansion. He's like, let me connect, you know, one of my team members to you who has a Long Island base, and let's just, you know, grow this thing on Long Island. I'm like, you know, I'm game. I'll help you as much as possible. You know, super, super networked specifically on Long Island. You know, my business partner, as I mentioned, Ken Breslin, his family has developed, you know, the earliest front field shopping center, you know, shopping centers on Long Island, right? So, you know, kind of like Long Island real estate royalty. And yeah, so we came together to do that. And that's probably 2 years ago now. And, you know, I'm not hyper involved in the day-to-day of that stuff, but, you know, always trying to support other people that fill my cup and teach me things along the way. And Ryan's one of the best.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of accomplishments. What would you say is like one of your proudest moments as far as, you know, business wise?
You know, so after leaving the small boutique Long Island brokerage company, Breslin Realty Development Corp, in 2006, at the end of 2006, I was paid handsomely to go to CBRE, which is the largest commercial real estate brokerage company in the world. So they gave me a 5-year contract that started in 2007. Prior to that, I never had health insurance, was living off draw, regardless of the fact that I was, you know, on paper, I was worth millions. But obviously that money wasn't coming in yet, you know, because of what I explained earlier in the episode. And for the first time, I got a big check and an expense account and health insurance and you know, started to learn the overall commercial real estate business, the office side, the industrial side. I looked at that as like grad school for me. So after kind of being there for 2007, you guys know what happened in 2008. So I had a port in a storm and it was secure for me. But I ended up, because I'm a good guy and probably too loyal, I ended up, when I told my now partner, Ken Breslin, that I was leaving, I left Chipotle, I left Starbucks, I left my accounts there because I didn't want to burn any bridges. And I felt like I was getting enough of a head start at CB with the cushion that they were giving me. So here's a good story. I ended up, my first week, since I had no clients, I ended up calling up a company called Massage Envy in Arizona. And I went to school in Arizona, as I mentioned. And they gave me the phone number for an area developer that owned 5 states for Massage Envy. So I called his cell phone and explained who I was and what I was doing. And he's like, dude, he's like, you have like great timing and the worst timing. I'm like, why is that? He's like, because I'm coming in to tour with your competitor on Monday morning. And this was like literally like a Thursday or Friday.
Wow.
I'm like, really? I'm like, who? And he tells me, and I'm like, shit. I'm like, when do you get in town? He's like, I fly in Sunday morning. I'm like, great. I'll be at the airport to pick you up. We'll tour Sunday. So I actually did that. He agreed. So, and listen, I mean, the reality is that I happen to know I'm very good at what I do. And that if you're getting in a car with me to tour Long Island, I'm a little rusty now. I probably know LA and Memphis and, Nashville and Florida, arguably as well as I know Long Island now because my team focuses on New York Metro and I'm, kind of out and about across the country doing what I do. But at the time, I was literally only doing Long Island, right? So I was very confident that if I could get him in the car, that he'd hire me. And long story short, pick him up at the airport. We tour the entire day, wrap up the day. He's like, I'm going to cancel my tour tomorrow. So what happened from there, though, dude, what's crazy about what happened with that was that's exactly how I expanded my business from being really like Long Island boroughs to the rest of the country because and that's how I spun off a complete franchise solutions business because up until that point Starbucks is not a franchise, Chipotle is not a franchise, every store is corporate. So when I landed the Massage Envy account and I started working with them in multiple states, that's how I ultimately got to where I am today. But what's cool about that is doing such a great job with them for the Massage Envy brand. This gentleman, Jerome Kern, and his partner, Dave Long, ended up taking what they learned from Massage Envy. They discovered a concept called European Wax Center in South Florida, where I spend a lot of time. They called me about a year and a half into our relationship. They're like, yo, we just found something really cool that we're going to partner with the owners to franchise. When's the next time you're going to be down here? Went down and walked into the first European Wax Center. They asked me my thoughts. I'm like, I think you absolutely have something here because everyone I know is waxed in the back of a shady salon. And, there's probably a good opportunity here. So they ended up doing that, helped them roll out European Wax Center across the country. And fast forward about a few years later, as we're rolling with Wax Center, I'm actually on a site tour with Jerome and his whole family on a Saturday, which is not customary for commercial real estate. We're like divas. We only work Monday to Friday, unlike residential, right? So I'm on tour with them, and Jerome's wife, April, turns to us and is ranting and raving about this concept in South Florida called Ellen's Ultimate Workout. And Jerome and I are just literally laughing at the name of this business, right? I think nothing of it. So fast forward, same type of thing happens that happened with Wax Center with him. And he's like, when are you going to be down next? This is like a year and change later. I need you to come check something out I've been working on. I go down and I walk into the first Orange Theory Fitness and work out there. So I actually helped Orange Theory from scratch grow as well. And today,
Oh my gosh!
Today,
All these
Yo,
names.
yeah, I'm just sitting here
by the
mind
way, you
blown.
can fact check all this shit because honestly, it sounds to me like I'm actually bullshitting.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. But Chipotle, Starbucks, Massage Envy, Orange Theory, that's freaking amazing.
McDonald's.
Well, McDonald's. Well, I've done a bunch with McDonald's.
Of course you have.
What have you done?
Fun fact here, though. For a brief period of time, I have to go back to Chipotle because this is a great story. So when Steve Ells started Chipotle, he started that as a hobby to ultimately raise money while he had this little fast casual concept. You used the term earlier. I could define it for you. So Chipotle is the perfect example of a fast casual concept, right? So you come in, there's no waiter waitress service. So you come in, Chipotle changed the game when it comes to eating healthy food fast, right? So you walk up to the bar and you ask for everything, whatever. Everybody now is like striving to be the Italian Chipotle, the Mediterranean Chipotle, Cava Grill, whatever. But the crazy story about this is Steve Ells borrowed money from his dad and his golf partners to open the first Chipotle so he could make money to open a full-service fine dining restaurant. That was his whole goal. But the first location was so successful that he went back to his father and his golf buddies and started to ask for more and more money. Got like 3 or 4 open and goes back to his dad for like the 5th raise essentially with his buddies. And his dad's like, dude, you're crushing it, but now you got to get real financing. You got to like go out and really raise real money, not from us. Like we'll stay involved, but you need real money now. Steve Ells, being like the chef artist that he is, writes one letter and sends it to McDonald's.
Wow.
McDonald's comes to Chipotle and loves what they see and buys the company.
Gosh.
That's so funny.
What's better about this story is that they buy the company and it's going really, really well, but McDonald's doesn't understand Chipotle and they offer to sell it back to Steve Ells for like pennies on the dollar and he buys it back.
My gosh.
Takes the company public. I buy a bunch of the stock, and my advisor tells me to sell it when I like triple my money. Never listen to your financial advisor when you know the company better than him, because that is probably the biggest failure, one of the biggest failures that I've had. So I'd be in a much better position if I didn't sell that stock. I did. I have a lot of failures, by the way. It's not all wins, and that's what I think is really great about business, because as you get older, you try to actually just learn from those mistakes. And I love to actually surround myself with people that are further ahead than me so I could use their failures to learn from, right? And that's kind of what I would offer to most people. Like you have to, I was always so proud and egotistical when I started my business, Sabre. And I thought that I could do it all on my own and just kind of like stubborn, like, yo, I had all these wins.
Yeah.
I was at a small company, then I went to CB, and now I started my own company. I could do it all on my own. I don't need anybody's help. Dumbest thing, like worst mentality. I'm 13 years in. I would have gotten to where I am today 3 years in if I would have actually thought about how to surround myself with mentors that have done what I'm trying to do. And also, one of my favorite quotes, never take advice or guidance from people who have not already been where you're trying to go. You got to compress time nowadays.
Yep.
That's why we got to buy a jet.
Honestly, like I've heard that a lot, and I use that like every single time like I talk to people. Like I only learn from people who like are doing what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Like if you're not in that lane, I can't learn from you. Like what are you going to tell me that I don't already know about it?
Yeah.
So I think it's very valuable advice.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Now I'm like on this new mission to just optimize every area of my life. I work very heavily in like the healthy lifestyle space. So most of the companies that I personally am involved in today are like mindfulness, fitness, overall wellness, breath work, stuff like that. So I've gotten real heavy into biohacking. I do ice baths every day. I have a sauna at my house. I'm sitting in that thing at like 210 degrees.
210 degrees?
Yeah, for like, 20, 30 minutes. And what's crazy is like, you start to realize people that are operating at like the highest level, which I strive to, some people would argue that I already am, but not in my own head. I'm not, just learning. And I always operated like a, maybe $1 million CEO, and over the last like 5 years, I've dialed everything in my life. And now I could truly operate like $100 million CEO. And that's what I'm really surrounded by. Like my latest win, I helped a company called SolidCore that when I met Ann Malum, the founder of SolidCore, about 6.5 years ago, she had 6-7 locations in Washington, DC Metro. And she told me she wanted to get to 100 locations in the next like 7 years and sell the company. About 2 months ago, we actually hit the 100th location, regardless of COVID, in Santa Monica, California, and had a successful exit of $88.4 million. So, I looked at her like she was nuts when I first met her, and the reason that she was successful is because she is nuts, and I've learned so much about the business, just business in general, by working directly with Ann. And we're actually partners on a new brand in the fitness space called Ambition. We just opened 2 locations, one in downtown Brooklyn, one in Chelsea, New York City, and we have a third one, opening in Flatiron in a couple of weeks. So, part of what I do now is get involved, inside of brands, so I could take all this knowledge and apply it, and obviously, hopefully build wealth as a result of that, in addition to the highly transactional, brokerage business, and then also invest in brands that I like and not miss opportunities like Chipotle.
That probably kicks at you.
Yeah,
it does.
You even eat there anymore, or
every day? Double, triple protein. Shout out Brian Mazza. Yeah,
man, you dropped a lot of gems. Where can people reach out to you? You guys have a new podcast with Mike Steinberg. Shout out the podcast.
So,
let the people know where they can subscribe.
100%. So yeah, look out for our podcast. It's called What the Dealio. Mike Steinberg from Hedgestone and I. And Mike is, very instrumental in our Sabre Business Exchange, which is our business brokerage. Excited about that. I actually have another podcast that's very geared towards health and wellness, and that's called Live Better. So you guys can check out that as well. You can see everything under my Instagram, which is my full name, Jayson Siano, Jayson Siano. Yeah.
Where can find me? If somebody wants to expand, where can people reach out to you? There's a number, an email. What can people reach out to you at?
Yeah, well, you could look up Sabre. Is probably the easiest place to find me. Just Google Sabre Advisors, SABRE. It's www.sabre.life, LIFE. But DM me on Instagram. That's the
easiest way
to communicate with me for sure. And I really truly pride myself on helping people, like helping good humans. And I actually steer as far from negative people and negative energy. And I love your guys' vibe. It was a pleasure meeting you a few weeks ago.
Thank you for having me on, yeah.
Yeah, and now you and, whatever we could do together. I truly believe that people at the top collaborate. They don't compete. And I don't actually have any competition because I'm in my own lane and I'm too focused on my own grass to understand if somebody else's is greener. So,
wow.
That's like amazing. That. Well, 102nd.
Somebody put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, 102nd episode.
I'll wear it on the next episode.
102nd episode. Again, another $1 million episode, man. We're honored to have you guys here.
Bro,
thank you again.
A lot more than $1 million episode.
Yeah, correction.
I passed that shit.
A $1 billion episode.
Now we're talking.
$1 million would have been with the Chipotle. No, you would have been like in the trillions with the Chipotle stock.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, rub it in.
All right, man. Well, again, honored to have you here, man. Again, this is the latest episode of the Real Estate and Chill podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the video, share the video, comment. We bring you nothing but the best episodes, nothing but the best guests. All right?
Thank you.
What's the Dealio podcast? Yeah, of course.
Really appreciate it.
Make sure you guys subscribe.
Make sure to check them out. Subscribe to us. That was the latest episode of Real Estate and Chill podcast. We will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Real Estate and Chill podcast with James Chaudhry and Kevin Iglesias. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, share this with your friends, your enemies, your mother-in-law. No, seriously, this podcast is so fucking good, you might want to tell your ex. See you next time.